Hey everybody, Mike Bloom here, getting you ready for our week 5 exit interviews here on our Australian Survivor Redemption coverage. And what a week to kick off the merge. Just when we thought the pre-merge had ramped up the antics, that ramp keeps on going as I am bringing you 3 chats with 3 very different characters, but very fun personalities all the same. If you have not watched episodes 13, 14, 15 of Australian Survivor Redemption, what are you doing with your life? Pause this podcast, pause this video, abort, go jump to wherever you can find these episodes. Watch them ASAP. You will not regret it. This was an absolutely wild week. Once you are done, once you picked your jaw up off the ground, come back here and check out my conversations with this week's boots in Lottie, Richard, and Mark. A lot to talk about with these players. 3 very different paths in this game. Lottie ran the first 6 episodes like it was the military. She was such a force in the game that Dirty Harry himself had said that Lottie was playing better than him. So I was thrilled to talk to her all about how she was able to build that control over such a short period of time and how it unfortunately all fell apart the second she swapped over to Baron and then some. Of course, Richard stays on Bounty, but becomes arguably the biggest underdog of the underdogs this season, goes to every single tribal council up until his boot, except for 3. Only one of 2 people swapped over from his original tribe, and that person almost immediately goes. Someone who was being saved by necklaces and challenge throws and communications to the other side that may or may not have been fabricated. So there was a lot to get into with Richard, especially with the game that, again, we saw bits and pieces of, but I was glad to get, some words straight from his mouth about where he felt he stood in the game and how it all culminated in this wild tribal council and his sudden boot that came at the hands of Mark. Call him the villain of the season, call him the narrator. He is inarguably the biggest player of the season through the first 15 episodes, the source of so much strategy, of so much drama, both interpersonally and gameplay-wise, leading all the way up to just an absolutely wild boot. Mark talked about it all with me. Not all, because spoiler alert, I think he and I are going to have a larger conversation about all this once the season is over and he is done serving his jury duty, for lack of a better term. But still, I really loved all 3 of these chats in all their different ways. So don't you miss out on that or any of the other coverage we have going on here for Australian Survivor Redemption. Of course, the recaps this week, we had Chappelle on Sunday to talk about that big merge episode. Puya on Monday to talk about all the calamity that ensued during that tribal council fallout. And then hand to Macedonian Jesus. I did not plan this. It was merely a coincidence that I had Caroline Cordes, a woman who sat alongside Mark the first time he was voted out, to talk about how Mark was eliminated the second time he was voted out. All really fun chats. So absolutely check that out, as well as all the stuff we've got coming up. If these first 3 episodes are any indication, the individual game is going to be buck wild. And I hope you've been enjoying what we've been offering so far, trying to stop in every night, 3 nights a week to make sense as to all the very fluid motions that are being made over the course of this really, really fun season. I'm going to stop yammering for now and let the others do the talking. So thank you all, as always, for checking this out. Hope you enjoy my conversations with Lottie, Richard, and Mark. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. You were quite the presence on this season.
Oh my God, it's crazy. Hey, it was wild to watch back. I didn't realize how much of a player I was playing.
Interesting. Well, let's start, I guess, with the most recent thing you watched back here. Let's talk about the painting you dubbed "Should Have Seen It Coming." So, is there anything in retrospect that either a conversation or a moment you noticed that looking back was like, oh, I'm in trouble? Or did the other side do a really good job of just snowing you up until you got your torch snuffed?
Mike, I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was in trouble. I was on the bottom after the Arsh vote. You know, I had lost my love of Arsh and my love of Simon. Like it was just gone. I'd lost both sides. But the reality was, you know, we don't see it in the edit, but I was looking for idols. I was looking for things. I was hopeful, but I guess the downfall of that vote, stupidly for me, was that I still hung on to a chance that Simon and I were going to come back together. I believed him when he said, yep, let's do Jackson. I did believe him. And the heartbreak of watching last night's episode was seeing that Loz and Rich and Sal knew. And I'm like, guys, we could have done something magical. We had all these, you know, they call it the resistance. Why wasn't anyone resisting? You know, like, guys, come on, that could have been major, but it is what it is. And, you know, I obviously missed some signs, I missed some cues, and that's a cross that I have to carry.
Well, it's interesting because at tribal council, you specifically bring up, and especially in your final words, about how like they need to go for the big dogs. From your perspective, who would you define as the big dogs at the point you were voted out?
Oh, the big dogs were the guys that had it together, like Keeley, Jackson, Simon, Brooke, Mark. They knew what they were doing. And that was so clear. That was so evident on the beach. Those guys are switched on. They know how to play Survivor. They are clever. And, you know, these other guys that, you know, were in the resistance, they were clever too. They just weren't pulling the trigger. And I was going, guys, you know, you're smart. You've got great ideas. I'm listening to Sal, I'm listening to Loz and Rich, and I'm going, these are brilliant ideas. You guys are fantastic. But it's only an idea unless we do something with it. And I guess they weren't ready. That's the sad thing for me, is that they just weren't ready to take that hit and make that mark. And at Tribal, you know, we saw it last night when Mark and Simon and people start saying, you know, you need something on your resume. We're at Merge now. Let's start making a move. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're finally ready to start doing something. But the something was me.
Exactly. You were the something, and you did show something all the way back at the beginning. Let's rewind. Let's talk through your very eventful game because it kicks off with a flare. This
Mm.
very first vote, from our perspective, it seems like, you know, Cameron's trying to push something against Jackson. You're a little anti-returnee, but then you realize Daniel's too loose of a cannon. He's got to get taken care of right there, right then. Talk to me about this. Was it as simple as you making this decision in that moment to turn everything around onto him?
I mean, it was. I saw an opening and an opportunity, and I loved Daniel. He's so sweet. He's this beautiful little package of just pure joy. But the thing for me was, I learned very quickly that Daniel had loose lips, and loose lips sink ships, and he was just so excited to play. And I knew that didn't work for my game. And what I also knew was, well, if he doesn't work for my game, someone else is going to pick him up. And I didn't want that to happen either. I only wanted to keep people that I could work with. And I knew that in the event that I went, okay, well, Daniel, don't worry about him, push him to the side, he can stay, Harry would have picked him up immediately. Someone would have picked him up. And, you know, we didn't see it in the edit, but Richard's name was also getting thrown around at that point. And I thought, hold on, I love Rich. Rich is good. Rich is so clever. He's a super fan. He knows everything that's going to happen in this game down to the day. And I don't know that. So for me, immediately, I was like, you know what? Rich works so much better for me. Let's turn this vote around. And I'm so sorry, Daniel, but you're the option that's going to work for me tonight.
Were you afraid, as we also talk about Daniel and sort of segueing into the Paula vote, especially, that you were popping too much as one of these big players that was running things? Or did you feel like you were still kind of immersed in what was going on with everybody?
Mike, I think at the time, you know, it didn't show it, but I was so homesick. And there
Really?
were, oh, terribly, terribly. And I nearly didn't come on Survivor when I'd been cast. I was like, oh, you know what? I've got little kids, I've got this thriving business. Is this something that I really need or should be doing? And I nearly didn't come. And then when we were there, just before we'd gone in, I had like this nervous breakdown, being like, I should not be here. I'm not prepared for this. And I called home just before we went in, and my husband said to me, he was like, babe, you can't come home now. You can't be that guy that leaves before it even starts. And I was like, no, I'm not cut out for this. This is too much. And he said to me, just go and play. And the worst thing that can happen is you'll get sent home. You're a winner, then you get to come home. So what you guys see in those first 10 days is me playing with no consequence. And I think that is such a superpower, because when you're not scared of going home, you get this magic within you of being like, okay, well, let's play. Let's play, because you don't have that fear of going, but I really want to make it to jury, or I really want to be at merge. You just start playing. And when you don't care, I think it scares people, because they're like, oh, and then people want to jump on board with you, because when the train's moving, you want to get on it. And that was totally unintentional. I cannot take any credit for any of that stuff, other than the fact that I was like, you know what? I didn't give up my kids and my business and my husband and my life to come and sit on the beach and wait for someone to do something.
Wow, that is so enlightening to hear, because you talk about that train driving. We need to talk about you tying Paula down to the railroad tracks here, because that is sort of a key example where, like, listen, you had certainly caught the glint of Harry's eye since the beginning of, like, this is a guy I want to get out. And you had sort of bided your time, right? You had the Eliza vote, but you really choose to strike right here with Paula and then eventually Harry. But when it came to this Paula vote, talk to me about why you decided in that moment to start making the move against her. And let's clear things up. Was Paula really saying that Simon was sus, or was this a fabrication on your part?
Okay, so the Paula vote came about because obviously I wanted Harry to go, but Harry is so clever and he's so brilliant. And I knew that he could rally numbers. And Paula as well, we did not get to see enough of Paula. She was so social. Everyone loved to be around Paula. She was like a magnet of good times. And if you were feeling lonely or a bit of an outcast on that beach, you went and hung out with Paula because she made you feel good. She was brilliant. And I knew that if we wanted to get Harry, we could not get him when he had Paula, because Paula, whether anyone wants to admit it or not, Paula was the mastermind behind Harry in that whole setup. And I will die on that hill. Paula is brilliant. And when Harry would overplay or get a bit nervous or clock something, it was Paula that would go, "Ooh, hang on, let's, like that was my impression anyway." So for me, Paula didn't have to go just to weaken Harry. Paula had to go because she was good. She was good, and also benefit me to get Harry. So that's where the Paula situation came from. Did she actually say Simon's name? I don't know. We will have to roll the tapes. I was convinced. I had been told by a few people that she really did say Simon's name. Paula swears that she didn't. I don't know. I don't know the truth, but the truth didn't matter because it gave me an opening to take it. So whether or not it happened or not, I don't really care because it worked for me. And in that moment, you get given little Easter eggs on Survivor, these little moments that happen where you can ignore it or you can do something with it. And that was one of those things that presented itself to me. And I thought, you know what? Let's play.
So then talk to me about how that then segues into the next round, because it seems like seemingly you turn things around and you say, well, now that it's just Harry, he's not that bad. He's someone I would want to work with, to the point where it seemed like you and Asha were, butting heads a little bit about, okay, should it be Jackson or should it be Harry? Talk to me about that. Was that as sudden of a turn of mentality as we were led to believe on the show?
Yeah, it literally happened in a split second for me, sitting in the shelter, and I was like, okay, we take Harry out. Yep, perfect. That's a great move to have, on your resume. And then I sort of sat there and went, well, hang on. A greater move for me is to not take out Harry and to play with Harry, use Harry as a shield as we go into tribe swap or merge. And then we've got another target. It's enough to be like, come on, newbies, Harry's here, not Lottie that took out Daniel, Paula, Harry, blah, 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 blah. That wasn't a good place for me to sit. And I knew that there was maybe some benefit. It was risky. It was risky for sure to keep him, but it's Survivor. Like, let's have a bit of fun. Let's see what happens. And the truth be told, right up until that flint came out of the pocket at Tribal, I was not writing Harry's name down.
Wow. Did you get the sense that that was the case with a lot of other people too, or did you feel like the die was cast against Harry, but I'm not voting against him?
I think it was going to be a very, very close vote. A very
Wow. Who did you have
in
on your
that
side at that point?
Lyndall was still very on the fence. Ash had, she was open to the idea of saving Harry. Cameron wanted Jackson out, so it was a sure vote for Cam. Simon was kind of, he would have saved Harry at any
Right.
chance that he got. Like the numbers were there. And then we got to tribal, and it was just sort of this explosion from Harry. And I sort of sat there going, oh crap, like this is not something I can work with. We don't, oops, sorry. There was all these things where I just thought, I can't work with Harry now. I can't. This is too risky. And that's when we sort of went, it's got to be Harry.
Well, you mentioned a few names. I want to dote on some of these relationships because they'll be so key to your game. Let's start with Asha. So, talk to me about how this relationship developed, and were you truly a little sus of her after that vote of, oh, you were pushing Jackson a lot more than I thought you would?
Ash is genuinely the kindest, most beautiful person. And when you're on that beach and you're a bit homesick, like I was, someone like Ash that walks into the room and just laughs, or she's so inclusive, she brought everyone in, she's beautiful. And I just couldn't not work with her. She was so aligned with everything I believe in on the outside. And I was just like, you are someone that if I met you at the pub, I would want to be friends with you. So that felt right for me to work with Ash. And she wasn't going to let me not work with her anyway. She was like, you're coming with me. And I was like, I will, because I love you. Ash, when I said, Ash is getting a bit flaky. And I only meant that in the terms of, I was like, she's getting very good. She's getting ahead of where I'm at. She's, paving her own path, which she should. It's Survivor. But at that time, I didn't want her to. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's talk these decisions through. And when I said she was getting flaky, it was because I was scared that her next vote would be Simon. And I
Interesting.
needed Simon. I needed him for the challenges. I needed him for camp morale. I needed him because he was willing to work with me. And that was not a number I was willing to give up.
Well, let's talk about Simon here because, we see it in episode 6. Okay, you two of you are locking in. I've heard through a variety of people that actually you were more of a day one ride or die situation. So talk to me about how that formed. And obviously we'll get into things becoming much more complicated, when the swap happens. But through that first phase of the game, how did the two of you work together?
So Simon and I immediately, I was a bit homesick. He was a bit homesick. We've left little kids at home. So immediately that was something that we had in common. So we would start chatting, and then things sort of progressed. He had told me that in his previous seasons, something he felt that he was really missing was that ride or die, someone that he could confide in, really trust, and really go through with. And I needed that too. But the real truth is I couldn't do the challenges. I'm so unfit, so
You're
unfit.
a self-proclaimed challenge beast.
Oh my God, that was a joke. I am so unfit. I don't go to the gym. I don't do anything. If you see me running, you run as well, because it means it's serious. I'm not by any means remotely active. And I really fumbled that going into Survivor. I should have done a lot more training. I should have tried harder. And the reality was that first challenge with the wagon wheels, I was like, I can't do this. I
Mm.
can't get up the wall. There is no way. There is absolutely no way. And you can even see, just to dive deeper into the edit, everyone's in like board shorts and bikinis. They're all like jacked up, ready to go. I'm standing still, fully dressed, looking around, going, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this. I will not be able to do this. And when I'm panicking in that moment, I sort of look next to me, and who's standing there but big, muscly, strong Simon, really like jacked up, ready to go, big grin on his face. And I sort of looked at him and went, I need you. I actually need you to get me through this. And he did. He carried me through all the challenges right up to the end.
Well, we need to talk about one particular challenge that he did win for you, though maybe you didn't want him to. Let's talk about this double tribal council because
Mhm.
this was the beginning of the end for Asha, when the Beauty and the Beast alliance forms. So I'm curious, were you picking up that evening that Simon was sort of hearing things from a lot of different people? And what was your reaction when he ultimately decides not to go through with throwing that fire making challenge?
I mean, firstly, that was a hard watch for me because
Mm.
I was like, Lottie, stop being so bossy. Like, let him fuck simmer. I was like, oh my God, this is a hard watch. And he was sort of, I still believed at that point that we were so solid. And I was like, what are you doing? You told me you were going to throw it. Like, what's happening here? Is there a different plan? And I think what you see when I'm getting so bossy is that's paranoia because Simon had told me he would do all these things and they weren't going the way that he had explained it would. So I sort of sat there going, oh my God, something else is happening. And the reality was, the core of it was that we all loved Richard so much. And we believed that if they went to tribal, if the other tribe went to tribal, it was Rich that would go.
Mm.
And we wanted Rich to get to merge. We wanted to work with him again. We knew we had his numbers. So for us, we thought genuinely, all right, we're all safe. We can go, whether it's Brooke or someone else, we're all sorted, but we must save Richard. And when Simon was not doing that, I was going, well, hang on, wait, you told me that you wanted to save Rich. What's happening here? And what you saw, like I said, it was a hard watch. But that was paranoia. That was through and through paranoia of not knowing what was happening.
In the days following that and leading up to the Asha vote, did you get a sense that something else was happening to your point about that paranoia? Or did you really feel like, nope, we made this plan as soon as we swapped, that it's going to be 3-3-3 in terms of the votes. Let's just stick through it. Nothing bad's going to happen.
I think my downfall was the trust I had in Simon.
Mm.
I said to him on the beach just before the Ash vote, I went, here's something up. Like I can feel something's different, something has shifted. And he looked me in the eyes and was like, no, it's fine. Like we're solid. This is going ahead. It will be okay. And I believed him. And that was such a rookie error from me. I should have done way more asking around than just Simon. And I am the definition of putting all my eggs in one basket.
Which is
And
wild.
I should have known.
Well, talk to me about your reaction after that, because I think incense would be putting it mildly. You literally say at one point, like, I'm debating whether to basically nuke my game out of spite. I think that speaks to earlier about your sort of like playing with house money philosophy. But
Mhm.
how did you handle your Simon relationship in the hours and days following that?
I was furious when we got back to the beach. It was like Lottie had lost her shit. I was ready for war. Like the everyone's on the beach chasing me with a camera because they're like, "Oh my God, what's going to happen?" And I was like, I was so angry because again, I had had my heart broken twice. I'd lost Ash, but I'd also lost Simon, and I was so upset because I was like, we had a good thing going. I'm so devastated, but I mean, stroke of genius by Simon. He got me exactly where he wanted me. He got rid of Ash, who was a huge player. Like it was smart from him. It was actually major. I applaud that move. But again, it was not until Cam came and said to me, you need to really, really settle down because if you don't, your game is over. And thank God I had Cam with that, insight and that forefront to be like, calm down, or your game is through.
Well, I'm curious, in your final words, you basically commend Simon as you continue to do about like, well, you got me before I got you. Did you plan of when exactly you would want to use Simon? Was he in your endgame plans at all, or was he going to go sooner rather than later for you?
Originally, Simon was always in my end game.
Mm.
Ash and Simon, they're the ones I wanted to see at the end. But Simon started to get flaky and he was icing me out. He was being a bit weird around Cam. And I had actually said to Cam before that vote, I went, Simon, if we survive this, Simon has to be next. He has to be because he is wigging me out. It's too much. It's crazy. And I went, he's got to go. He's got to go. He was making me so paranoid. I was like the best friend that got burnt. And I was like, he's everything about him. It's just too sad. It's too sad. We had this great thing going and now I'm paranoid as hell. So I think, yeah, Simon, he got me before he got.
Wow. Just noting on a couple of quick relationships. You mentioned Cameron beforehand. And again, we felt like we saw a lot of you and Asha and Cameron, not a lot of you and Cameron. So was that bond as strong as it was with Asha?
Oh my goodness, yes. I would go to Cam every morning when we would wake up. He would be the person I would look for because he is just so genuinely beautiful that he made you feel good. He was such a
Mhm.
great way to start the day. And I loved him so much. Cam, whilst he wasn't throwing out big ideas all the time, he was such a good soundboard. You knew you could trust Cam. You would go to him and go, "Oh, we're thinking about this," and he'd go, "I don't like it yet. I don't like it yet." And that's exactly what Ash and I, who were bulls at a gate, we needed that. We needed someone to go, just hang on a second, think about this. And Cam's clever too. He was just playing a very different game to what I was. But that relationship was so genuine.
Well, what about Laz? This is one we really did not see any of. And Laz says a couple times, like, Lottie, really stuck her neck out to protect me. We didn't really get the chance to see that. So talk to me more about what that was.
There was so many times, Loz and I and Rich, again, we didn't see it, but at the very beginning, we had this little alliance called the Parent Trap.
Mm.
And we had all left our kids behind. We all had that same feeling in our guts and in our heart. And we would we didn't want it to get airtime because we didn't want it to be known, but we would check in with each other. We'd hear little bits and pieces and we'd go, Rich, be careful of that, or things like that. It wasn't major. I think the relationship with Loz was more outside of the game than in it. Like on the beach, we would sit there, I'd ask her about her kids. We connected, we spoke about things, and there were times when Loz's name was an easy vote. There was many times when people would be like, let's just get Loz. Let's just get Loz. Easy vote, easy vote. But it's an easy vote because it doesn't do anything. And I'm not here to play Survivor to do nothing. So I wanted to keep Loz. And Loz
Mhm.
was a great soundboard, just like Cam. She was good. She was a listener. She was very good at observing. She knew what was happening and she sat back and waited. And I needed some more of that in my life.
What was so interesting is we get a moment in this most recent episode where I think it's Mark says, like, and Lottie and Caleb are getting really tight all of a sudden, which is odd because the two of you had never been on a tribe up until those couple days you spent together. So was this something that had been building, or was it just like an immediate natural connection you had with him?
No, it was an immediate natural connection. And that was Mark, honestly, just trying to fearmonger. Like, yeah, sorry, Caleb's a great time. I love a good time. That was the energy I wanted to see in the game. And Caleb wanted to play. He was ready. Like he'd had enough of the Keeley Mark Faith train. He had had enough of having to fight for his life, and he wanted to come and start playing. And that's what I was looking for. So with Caleb, he's just a legend in general. So it was an easy connection for me. And I think Mark saw that and went, okay, well, let's put a bit of fear in people. Let's spread that and make it sound a bit bigger than it is. And again, smart play because it made people worry.
Well, someone you also had only met a couple days before you were voted out, but felt quite different about you was Keeley, who, from our perspective, alongside Simon, seemed to be the one to engineer your ouster. She got two over you, if you count that carrot in the box challenge. So, talk to me about that sense. I think both of you were very big players who, again, had not largely interacted. What's your reaction to finding out that she was the one that seemed to really start the ball rolling against you?
I'm not surprised at all. Keeley is so clever. She's so good at this game. It was only a matter of time before someone like Keeley got me. Keeley is naturally so good at a game like Survivor. She watches, she listens, and then she acts. She acts. She gets these ideas. Like a lot of people have big ideas, but they do nothing. But Keeley gets a big idea and she sets it in motion and then she steps back. And honestly, I take my hat off to Keeley. She killed it. She killed it in that game. I wish we were working together. It would have been a very fun dynamic because whilst we were both working hard, we're very different people, very different people. And I think that would have been a fun thing to see play out.
Well, the last thing I want to ask, I'm especially interested now that you sort of talked about the homesickness that you felt throughout your time there and, the near regret you had up until your feet hit the sand. All that being said, is Survivor something you would want to do again, or did you now say, okay, I had my time, had had a lot of fun. I'm ready to sort of stick to the paintings and go from there.
No, I think, look, anyone that gets the opportunity to do Survivor is already a winner, right? So many people worldwide want that chance. And that is not falling on deaf ears for me. Would I go back? Yes. I hate to say it, but I would. I would go back. I mean, there might be different conditions this time. I'd love to do a 16-day game. That would be much nicer. We all know I go hard early, so maybe a shorter season would be good for me. But no, I think I would never say never. It's not something that I'm sitting here going, God, I wish I was back on that beach right now. But as we watch it play out, I go, shit, I can see why people love it. I can see why they go back. I can see why they want to right their wrongs. And, but maybe I talk too much of a big game about returnees to ever be allowed back.
But then you are a returnee, right? Then you're just sort of like, well, listen, now we're in a different bucket, right?
Yeah,
Now I'm in that
kidding,
position. We're good.
kidding.
Well, for what it's worth, that is music to my ears because I just had such an immensely enjoyable time getting to watch you get to do this, especially as someone, again, like you said, like really hitting the ground running, sort of flying by the seat of your pants. I mean, when you have Harry say, like, oh, Lottie's playing a much better game than I am, that says a lot. Considering that he is, a 3-time player sharing the beach with you, your ability to be able to corral people within those first few votes to truly shape that tribe however you wanted to, and then to also, unfortunately tumble down as a result and try to build your way back. I mean, to say it's a badge of honor would be a little bit of a misnomer, but to get eliminated because you were the one flagged as the most likely person to mount a revolution as you were trying to mount a revolution goes to show what you're capable of as a player, as a character. So it was just an incredible time getting to watch you. I think I, as well as many people, were shocked that you went out at the merge, not even the jury, given everything you brought to the game at this point. But I think it's, as you said, you're here for a good time, not a long time here at least, but the good time nonetheless.
I think, Mike, that's so kind, everything you've said. Thank you so much. With the jury, a little bit of an inside scoop. I know that everyone on the beach was running the yarn of we do not want Lottie on the jury because they believed that I would be influential in votes.
Yeah.
And they did not want me there. So I can see why I had to go when I had to go because they're right. I would have been like, that's a lie. That didn't happen. I wasn't scared of being heard. So, again, hats off to them because they're clever. They're clever people. They're very good at this game. And I am so honored to be able to have played a game with such brilliant people.
Well, my hat's off to you because, again, you were a fantastic character and player in and of yourself. And I think you should be immensely proud of, again, like you said, there are people that played twice as long as you did and did not get to accomplish all the things that you did. And hopefully then you'll be able to extend it to a longer lifespan next time around. But regardless, I'm just happy that we had the time to watch you when we did. And I'm especially happy personally that I got the time to talk with you today and get so many
Thank
great
you.
perspectives from you. This is truly a pleasure.
No, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Yeah, maybe we'll see you next time.
Listen, when not if, when we'll manifest it, we'll put it out there. I will let you go,
Let's
but
go
all my
together,
best,
Mike.
all my best to you and the family. Thank you so much again, Lottie. This was such a great time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it,
Of
Mike.
course, take care. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Rich, I am so excited for cash flow to let the words flow here. Oh, wait, where did that nickname come from, by the way? Did you come in with that?
No, Cam made it up. He was calling me rich, and he was like rich like cash like cash flow. So he started calling me cash flow, and it just caught on.
Well, we need to talk about the random flows and ebbs that came with this last tribal council. Because wild would be an understatement. I imagine you would be describing that mildly too, given the fact that it culminated in your ouster. So I guess we want to start with this moment that we got the chance to see, which is Mark leans over to you and says, like, are you voting for me tonight? And again, from our perspective, it just seems like you're saying, I'm fine. So what were you trying to communicate in that moment? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you had seen that he had some sort of package. Were you just trying to sort of like keep him at bay while voting for him the entire time?
Yeah, like in my mind, like these were the last words I was going to be saying to Mark. And well, actually, that actually turned out to be
Yeah.
true, but just not in the way that I expected it, Mike. So, look, my conversations with Mark in that moment weren't that important to me because I wasn't expecting Mark to be around for that much longer.
Yeah, so then did you ever debate, pulling a Ben and basically being like, I'm sorry, I have to take you out? Because, I mean, at least from what's communicated to us, it seems like he was targeting you because of that conversation the two of you had at Tribal Council.
Yeah, look, going through my head that night, I knew that there would be hell to pay if Mark survived this vote. But what I didn't expect was that Mark would turn the votes on me.
Yeah.
When I think about the way I play Survivor, it's not always the biggest move, but it's the optimal move. Like, what's the right move for me in that situation? And the maths in my head just said it would make no sense for Mark to take me out. Why is that? Well, it would be toasting a relationship through Simon where I was actually very heavily influenced by Simon in how I played the game.
Mm.
And if I left, then Simon loses someone that he can convince to vote. Loz will also move on because Loz and I were playing very closely with Simon. Ben had been threatened that night by Mark, so he's going to move on. Jackson's with him. Caleb's already like voting his own way, not following Mark. Sally, he knows, is gunning for him. Blanche and Cam, well, Mark's thrown out their names in the last 24 hours. So it was like, well, if I go, how are you going to reform a majority without me in the game? It made no sense for me to be taken out that night.
All right, well, let's roll this wave all the way back to the beginning of the game here because we did not see a lot of you, in Bounty 1.0, but we heard a lot about you. Your name was being thrown out as an option, all the way back to the very first tribal council. Harry tries to hold that Flint hostage and say if you have to vote Richard out. So talk to me a bit about this. Did you get the sense that you were on the outs for whatever reason, and why do you think that was?
Yeah, so I didn't really fit in with the tribe from day one. I was 10 years older than everyone else. I was from Sydney, and bizarrely enough, there was really no one who grew up in Sydney on that tribe. And everyone just had kind of very different backgrounds that it was really hard for me to find common ground with. So it was natural that I would be at the bottom. Having my name thrown out there on day two was a huge wake-up call for me, and a realization that I don't really have much power in this game, but I can work on building relationships. And so what's not shown is just how close I became to people like Asha, Cam, Loz, and Simon, and even Lottie in the early stage of that game. And those relationships, which were deep and authentic, really helped me get through the tribe swap.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the people who have come on the way out have said how deep of a relationship you had with them. What did you have to adjust exactly? Because, like you said, if you're not connecting on a lot of similar personal details, were you finding other ways to approach them?
Yeah, I mean, look, in my day-to-day life, most of it revolves around being in a business and doing business things. So I had to delve deep into my identity to find things that I could connect with my tribe, and I managed to do it. And those relationships, they're not just for the game. I'm going to have those deep relationships forever. It was a really beautiful tribe that I was on to begin with.
Well, you mentioned your job. I am curious. Did you ever end up telling anyone in the game that you were a CEO?
No, I didn't, but it didn't help but with Cam throwing around the name Cashflow the whole time. So
And the jacket too. Again, there's a certain caliber of person in their outside work who wears a jacket.
yeah, that's right.
Well, then let's get to the person that will be donning the jacket alongside you in Mark and this entire Bounty 2.0. Let's talk about the trials and tribulations that you spent during your latter days on Bounty Beach. So I want to go in on some of these individual relationships because Keeley, we got so much about the board of directors and how she was reaching out to you to make something besides Mark. And then again, she was one of the people to vote against you. So did the board of directors ever materialize or anything? Did you ever feel close to Keeley from your perspective?
Look, I had nothing.
Yeah.
This was the only alliance, only named alliance that I had in the game, and it was a fake alliance. Like, was Keeley fully committed to it? No. Did I have any options? No. So, look, Keeley and I were sort of happy to work together opportunistically. But I don't think Keeley wanted me anything other than a number that she could, use in the game.
How about Mark? Obviously, he's going to play a very large role in the reason why you're talking with me today. But you talked to him on the beach about how, like, you identified him with him the most out of any Australian Survivor contestant. You speak Thai to each other bravely. Did you form a tie in that moment?
Yeah, look, all of that relationship building that I had done on my original tribe, I was trying to do with Mark as well. It didn't really work. I guess Mark and I had like a good working relationship, but I knew that I really didn't have any agency or control over him. So I wanted to work with Mark. I wanted to be closer with Mark, but with the head office running things, it just wasn't. It wasn't something he was interested in.
Well, that's interesting because from our perspective, it seems like when you go to that one challenge and you're putting on this big acting performance of Mark took my jacket and my hat, please throw the challenge. We think initially that it's all a fabrication, but it sounds like from what you're saying, there actually was a little bit of truth to it in that moment that you're like,
Yeah.
no, I am actually in danger here.
No, absolutely. And look, it was important that my tribe know what I was doing, and they all knew what I was doing. But I did not feel like I had much control over my game in that new tribe. And the reason why is, Sally was really, really locked in with the other two wise women. So she wasn't really prepared to make a move. Caleb was locked in with Mark. And once they voted out Dawn, we really didn't have any muscle left in the tribe to keep us strong in challenges. And I was like, well, once they've come for Caleb and Lyndall and Sally and Tez, they're going to come for me. And so the only way that I can reduce the probability of me going home is to go to less tribal councils. And while we will not win any immunities, at least in my calculations, the best I can do is get to the other tribe to throw it for me.
Well, certainly something that is quite the step back. You do get ahead on this Dawn boot. You're actually involved in this last minute shuffle, but then Lyndall is taken out. I am curious, what was sort of the tone you were picking up from that tribal council? Were you surprised by what ended up going down with the Lyndall vote sort of across the board?
Yeah, it was really the only vote I got wrong in the game. Even my last vote was a majority where I got idled out, but I felt like I was in a better position with the tribe than I really was. And it was a huge wake-up call for me that they don't perceive me or Lyndall in the way that I had hoped they would. Lyndall was also very comfortable in that tribal council as well. And so when Lyndall went home, I was devastated. And the next day I was in full freaking panic mode.
Yeah. I mean, luckily you were granted a couple of reprieves from said panic mode for at least a little bit, right? Because then you have this whole public display of affection, for lack of a better term, when Simon gives you the necklace. Asha then throws the challenge the next time. I mean, I'm curious, how are you trying to sort of like balance your own public reaction? Obviously, I imagine on the inside you are brimming with joy that you are getting all these opportunities to be saved. But like you mentioned, I'm sure you're simultaneously trying to like maintain some semblance of relationships to be like, oh, you didn't have to do that, Simon. Really appreciate it, but we're not that close, right?
Yeah, look, I knew from Mark telling me that he wanted to work with Simon post-merge. And so Mark was saying the fact that I have a good relationship with Simon, at least at this stage in the game, was good for him as well. And so the dynamic there of Simon working cooperatively with me across tribal lines at that stage was okay for Mark. Look, I had to try and maintain a semblance of not being too close to the other tribe. And it's quite perceptive of you to pick up on that because when I arrived on the mat one day to hear that Asha had been voted out, like I wanted to absolutely like go wild and hysterical and like, what the hell are you guys doing over there? But I had to kind of maintain my composure and say, oh well, like that's a tribe that I'm no longer really that close to anymore, and this is my new tribe, and I'm trying to play nicely with them. So yeah, I was trying to make sure that I didn't come across as too close to my old tribe, when in reality, they were the only ones who were willing to play with me in the game.
That all being said, when we get into this episode 11 tribal council to send half the tribe to Redemption Beach, you somehow escape with 0 votes cast against you. Now, I have to ask, where did this vote for Keeley come from? Was this a plan you had talked with somebody else about? Was this sort of like a spur of the moment thought you had? Because it was obviously a very determining vote as to who got sent there.
Yeah. So look, up until this point, Mike, my voting in tribal council had been really kind of easy. The votes had always gone the way that I wanted, except for the Lindell vote. So I never really needed to make a call. And this was the first time in Survivor where it was like I had to step up to the plate and make the best move for me. The thinking behind it was, number one, I'm going to start with the assumption I'm going to Redemption Beach. And then number two, I want to send someone there that I can beat in a challenge, that will be an ally with me, and that I want to build a deeper relationship with.
Aha, okay.
But Keeley fit all those descriptions. But like the fact that I didn't get voted for to go to Redemption Beach is a stuff up, I guess, from the head office. And it turned out to be actually the best possible move I could have made, because if I had have sent Mark there, Keeley and Faith would never have voted him off. They weren't ready to do that. And if I had have sent Faith there, then Mark would never have had that fateful conversation with her that got him paranoid. So it turned out to be an incredibly important move for me in terms of, well, ultimately ending up taking out a key ally of Mark's, which made no sense to me, but I was incredibly happy to go along with and start to dismantle, the head office.
Yeah, talk to me more about that. I mean, how out of nowhere was that for you when Mark comes up to you with this plan, Operation Wave, to take out Faith? Was this something you were trying to sort of like stoke the flames of, try to find some crack in the head office up to that point?
Well, my response to Mark when he said that to me was, "This sounds too good to be true."
Yeah.
And he had this little smile on his face, like, "Yeah, I can see how you think that, but it's true." And I was over the moon to hear this, and so was Caleb. Even though I actually, like, on a personal level, and I think Faith has said this on an exit interview, that Faith and I were kind of getting along great out there. I never forgot the way she came between Simon, me, and a necklace. I never thought a grown man would ever have to, say those words, but I wanted that necklace. And Faith really put up a fight for me not to get it. And that didn't sit right with me. So I felt, pretty comfortable voting out Faith that night. Probably voting out Mark would have been a much better move, but that was what was driving me.
So you end up getting forward to the merge. You have been seeking the safe haven of these people, and you find them. Who did you connect with immediately? Who were you tightest with on that
Yeah.
merge tribe once everyone came together?
Yeah, so this will probably surprise you, but the person who I was the closest to was Loss.
Yeah, because I see this, right? When you tell her, like, we're always going to move in parallel. Again,
Yeah.
bit of a surprise from all of us who have been watching the episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, Loz and I had just connected on like a really personal level. She's very similar age to me. She thinks about the game and about relationships in a very similar way to me. And we both had a really good working relationship with Simon. So Loz was my perfect ally. And in my head, the way that I wanted to move forward in the game was working with Simon and Loz, the three of us. I also felt a huge debt of gratitude to Simon for getting me through to the merge. So it was really important for me that I say thank you to him, which was the Lottie vote.
Yeah, I want to talk about that actually, because yeah, I mean, it certainly is personified to us. Like, you're certainly one of the people in the middle. There's a point, at that tribal council, where you're whispering back and forth. It's like, okay, what should we do? Did you ever really consider voting out Jackson, or was it always going to be voting out Lottie? Because I know that from Lottie said you all had a close relationship too.
Yeah, we did, and it's probably the vote I most regret out there. Lottie had done a lot to protect me in the early stages of the game. Loz and I both had a great relationship with her. Both of us did not feel great about voting out Lottie. Yeah, and look, my motivations that night were to demonstrate to Simon that I'm back and I'm here and I'm ready to play with you. And Lottie was a casualty of that.
Let's say that you survive this vote, the Mark plan, hook, line, and sinker. He doesn't play his idol, or he doesn't have an idol. He goes home. Were you eyeballing any people to go to the end with? Were Simon and Laws people that you had in your ideal final 3 or 4?
Yeah, Simon and Loz were absolutely the two that I wanted to move forward with. It just would have been a perfect trio, and something that Simon, I think, would have felt very, very comfortable with, particularly in terms of the power dynamics between the three of us. The challenge for me is that, with Mark potentially gone the next day, we really wanted to make a move then on the next returnee, which would have been Brooke. And that would have been really, really hard to get through Simon, and particularly hard to get through with Brooke being so strong in challenges. Loz had wanted to get Jackson out the whole game. So that would have probably been a more palatable move for the three of us to do.
Lastly, I know that obviously you're a dyed-in-the-wool super fan, but you come in with the strategy that you end up talking about back during the Faith vote of wave, watch, adapt, vote, endure. For future Survivor contestants out there, how much would you recommend that strategy? Do you think the execution of it matched up to your expectation of how it would work in the game?
Yeah. Look, let me just rate myself on that. So, like, on the endure part, I give myself a 10 out of 10. Like, I had the hardest road to get to merge. It was miserable at times, but I never gave up and I got there. On the vote side of things, I give myself a 9 out of 10. I was on the right side of the vote 90% of the time. And the votes really moved in a direction that I wanted in the game. And then in terms of the adapt, I think a lot of my gameplay during the tribe swap was quite original and unconventional. Like, I wasn't playing with that tribe; I was playing with the old tribe and getting through. Where I really kind of probably would give myself like a 5 out of 10 is on the watch side of things. Like, I just did not have a good read of how tight Mark was with Simon, in the game and outside of the game. Look, it's a dynamic game strategy. I think a lot of people come in to Survivor wanting to make big moves, which is always exciting TV. I just wanted to make the right move, and that's how I played my game.
Well, listen, and wouldn't be Talk Without You, Rich, if we didn't end with the performance meeting. It feels entirely appropriately corporate to do so. But thank you so much for everything you brought. Again, I always love getting to watch superfans be able to play out a dream. And listen, I'm sure most of it felt like a nightmare to you in the moment. But like you said, you were doing pretty well at all those parts of Wave. And it took this, rogue vote in this rogue tribal council to send you out. So it was such a pleasure getting to talk with you and especially have you illuminate a lot of your game that we didn't get the chance to see. It's very clear, like you said, you walked in there with a very clear mind. And I think that did help you get through probably some of your worst moments that you had or the biggest, tribulations you faced over the course of your time on the show.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Of course.
Mike, I just want to say one last thing,
Please.
Which was one of your most memorable podcasts I've ever listened to was the one where you talked about the Scott vote.
Yeah.
Scott left the game. And you talked about yeah, I think you might have said like a mental health issue is like different from a physical health issue, because physical health you can see it, but mental health you can't.
Yeah.
It was an incredibly memorable line for me, and actually helped me think about like, oh, okay, I think I understand like mental health issues a lot more. But one thing that I did feel sitting there at my final tribal council was I was actually thinking about Scott a lot.
Really
Um, yeah,
interesting.
and I was thinking about Scott because I was thinking, now I know how he felt. He's like, this is like the part of the game that's really horrible where you have to start voting your friends out.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, his that podcast and Scott's exit from the game was just going through my mind that night.
No, thank you for illuminating that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's also a facet of the game that we sort of all take for granted again, especially you've watched a considerable amount of the show. You probably just think like, oh yeah, you just vote somebody out and they leave and that's it. You don't really see the amount of time it takes to spend 24 hours with a day with a complete stranger, and the idea of like, okay, I'm contributing to their dream getting crushed. It's a
Yeah,
lot of pressure to live with. So thank you so much for beautifully expressing that as well, because thank you first of all for the kind words, but I think that is an element that, especially playing alongside returnees, the first time you experience it, from what I hear, is incredibly tough. I was just talking with Mike White, and he said the first time he cast a vote on Survivor, he cried.
really.
It's a really emotional gate you sort of have to get through in your path, hopefully towards the win.
Yeah, and I've had some returnees say to me, "Hey, it really helps to dehumanize the other players out there to make it easier." And it's like, oh God, I'm not sure that's necessarily in my nature.
Yeah, well, listen, I am so happy that I got to talk with who you were, no matter what, emotional plagues and all. I felt a lot of emotion getting the chance to chat with you, man. This was
Oh,
such
great,
great
thanks,
times.
Mike. And tell Pooja his read on Mark's vote last night was totally wrong. Like it was not.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say like, no, Puya, no 3 points for Mark. Okay, we're
Yes.
good. All right. Thanks so much again, Rich. You have a good one.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Mark, what the hell are you doing here? I thought we were going to be chatting in like 3 weeks. Why are you talking to me now?
Because of Caleb. Caleb
Yeah.
and his little stamp on the parchment. Oh my god. I mean, I'm good. I'm so good, Mike. Like, not. I'm a huge fan of Australian Survivor. I have had the chance to play twice. Titans v Rebels is an iconic season with some
Yeah.
of the best players in the world. And then now I get to take all of the lessons from Titans v Rebels and have my entire game shown over I don't know how many episodes in like great graphic, gory detail. I'm really good. I'm really good.
Good.
I'm the mayor of Druryvilla. I'm part of a great season of Australian Survivor, and I'm really proud of how I played. So I'm feeling really good, Mike.
Well, let's start breaking down this game you are so proud of. And unfortunately, we have to start with the ending here. When it comes to people being blindsided, of which you contributed to many, there always are these moments, these conversations that you look back on and you say, why did I not see the red flags coming? Now, this is very interesting for your perspective because, as you mentioned, it did kind of fall in the hands of one particular person. Was there anything you noticed in retrospect with Caleb before the vote that now made you realize, okay, he might not be as on my side as I thought?
Yeah, I've got a bromance blind spot for Caleb. Absolutely, I do. And I have had for weeks. I did not know that Caleb was in on the plan to vote me out when I played my idol. So and everyone was telling me, Mark, you've got a blind spot for Caleb. Like when Brooke and Keeley were telling me that quite a lot. So I didn't expect. I was kind of hoping. I think there's like a mixture. When you're playing Survivor, you need to imagine a world in which you succeed, and you need to have confidence in that can happen. And I was putting all of my eggs in Caleb to be, loyal, and obviously that was misguided. But at the same time, I don't regret it because I think that was. I still think that I played like the best that I could. There are elements of last night's episode that are a little bit funky for me in
Mm.
terms of what I remember. But I don't mind because I think it's a magical episode. So I kind of want to leave the episode as it is. I think that the whole, I know everyone's saying like you shouldn't have pushed him into not voting
Yeah,
for
I was about
Jackson.
to
And
ask you,
like,
do you think if either of you had said like let's do Jackson that you would have stayed?
no, I don't think so. I think Caleb got the scalp that he wanted. He's been telling me to my face for weeks now that he wants return. He's gone, and I'm like, nah, he doesn't. He's with me. He's my boy. I think that Caleb wanted. Well, he created the situation where he had the ability to take me out and stamp his little tag on the game, and he did. I think I was wrong to push to change the vote to Ben because I did think that we were working towards Jackson, but ultimately, I'm not sure that that was a deciding factor. I think that Caleb played a great move and got me out. So yeah, no, like I don't like. I'm a control freak. I want everything my way. I wanted Ben gone. I liked having the Jackson Caleb beef in the game. I thought it was useful to me. It was definitely a mistake on my part, but I don't think it was a deciding factor.
Well, we have a myriad of relationships to get into with you. I mean, let's stick on Caleb here because yeah, yours was a very interesting relationship. Talk to me about how it developed, especially when, there were these moments where he would be left out of the vote and you would try to somewhat bring him in, but simultaneously kind of keep him at arm's length for fear of, him blowing anything up.
Yeah, Caleb, really early connection in the game. I mean, I hit the ground running, Mike. I got to Samoa, haunted by ghosts, literally the same beach, and I can see where I'm literally seeing places where other conversations from my last season have already happened. And that feeling is like stepping into Jumanji. This world isn't in the real world. It's only on like HD in like fluorocolor on TV that it exists. I don't have any like other evidence of this world existing. So I was like, oh my God, I'm back here again in Jumanji. Let's go. Caleb was a very early connection that I made with Don on night one, the corn chip cartel, baby. And what was not shown was that Caleb and I think it might have been on day 2, we were noticing how, one, we both loved Don, and two, Don was not as sophisticated a player as Caleb was. And so Caleb was saying to me like, oh, I'm a little bit worried that Don's telling everyone about the corn chip cartel and maybe he's being a little bit too obvious with us. So we created the Tin Tannic Alliance. I know so many alliance names, hard to keep up, but we both love fishing, and I have a tinny, which is a little boat. And so we were talking a lot about fishing and those shared interests. And so I did feel like I had a one-on-one alliance with Caleb from day 2. Caleb was one of those players that Keeley and Faith are natural survivor players. Caleb is an angel of a human being, so sweet, loves the outdoors, loves the survivalist element. And I really appreciate that in a player, like someone who knows what they like about the game. And I really felt with Caleb, without being like too patriarchal, I felt like there was a teacher-student element to it, and I felt that was in my interests to have a savvy player, like more savvier players in the game, and so that's how I felt like Caleb. To my detriment, but I don't mind. I saw power in Caleb hidden under the tattoos, I think he's shown that last night that he can be a real danger in this game.
Well, you talked about this day 2 bond, but let's go back to this day 1 bond. We got to talk about Faith, Mark. So
yes.
Talk to me about, I mean, at one point you described this relationship as like just weird, would probably be putting it mildly, right? You talk about like, I don't understand how she could be so honest yet want to work with me. So before we even get into the decision to get rid of her, through those first 11 episodes, talk to me a bit more about what this very unique dynamic was like.
I love Faith. She's great. Like I think like one of the tricks to Survivor is finding really strong allies fast and making them fast before the game gets away from you. And Faith, just her life experience, she speaks Indonesian. She's lived in Bali, or maybe it's Balinese. I'm not sure. Correct me on that one, Faith. She's got multiple kids. She's a musician. She has all of her favorite bands tattooed on her leg, including a big red Birkenstock, not Birkenstock, Doc Marten boot. And I have like red boots as well. And like her confidence. Her confidence shines. And I know from Titans v Rebels that you need players that are confident, that can back themselves and aren't going to have too much self-doubt. And so there was just like, and then also like when you kind of like put all of those things together, the sum was greater than the parts, And so when I saw like all of these things are screaming at me like, oh, I really like this person. And I think she's going to be a great ally. And I think we can work really well together in a game where I'm one of 4 returnees out of 24. So I need people that are going to want to work with me and aren't afraid. And faith and fear, those 2 words should not exist in the same sentence. So is that enough? I like Faith. She's a great player. Like she just immediately jumped out off the page at me, and I was like, "No, you're with me." And I literally like pulled her out of bed. I'm like, unlike Lintel and Eliza, I'm like, Faith, you're coming over. I'm sitting you down. I am telling you to your face, I want to work with you. Like it was so full on, and she's like, "All right, I like it. Cool, let's go." And so, yeah. That's it. And then obviously the game evolves.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not that's it, Mark. It's not that's it. We need to talk about how this came to an end. Was this as abrupt of a decision as it seemed on the show? Was this something you had been thinking about for a while? And how do you ultimately look back, considering what transpired at the merge?
Yeah, I don't regret the decision, even though it's a really difficult decision. I came into this game having learned so many lessons from the last time, and I remember feeling like it's really hard to stab a close friend in the back. Like it's actually hurts. It actually hurts. It takes some part of your soul and crushes it. And I came into this game thinking, I need to have some little tiny little box in my body that allows me to do that to people. It's really difficult, and I think that it's really. I don't think that people understand how hard it is to do that, but I knew I had the ability to do it. When at that challenge that Caleb won to come back from Redemption Island, I remember thinking to myself, okay, if Caleb wins this challenge, there is an opportunity to do something. And then when he won that challenge was when I decided. That was when I decided I'm going to come for Faith. Asha, even though she was gone at that point, Asha, Lottie, and Cameron, there was so much beef between them and me, Keeley, and Faith, like across the tribe. Like
yeah,
at that
I
bluff,
know. Yeah,
like
Faith had said at that double tribal, right? Like there was a lot of crosstalk happening.
A lot. And so I was like, oh God, if I go into, there's so many aspects of it. If I go into merge with Faith, Faith, and Keeley, we're huge targets. And if I try and move on Faith, then it's pretty easily going to get back. I think it could quite easily get back to everyone that I'm targeting Faith. Because we're so visibly close. Faith had also said to me that she wanted to target Brooke at once the merge happened, and I was like, don't love that because Brooke is my number 1 ally. She obviously, and then like the whole concept of like her telling me she wouldn't take me to the end, I actually understand it. Like it was in the context of talking about taking out Caleb, but in my mind, I'm like, this is like a situation where the only way in which you have a better resume than me, Faith, is like if you vote out everyone that I'm with and working with, and then put me like a trophy at Final Travel Council on the pedestal and be like, look at all the fangs I've taken out of Mark's mouth. So bloody hell, it really hurt, but it was just like at that moment, I switched in, like I opened that little box inside of me, and I said, okay, you're allowed to do this, Mark. It's really going to hurt. And yeah, I think I moved quickly with Rich and Caleb to do it. Like she could have done it as well. But she, sadly for her, she didn't. And then the rest is up to history. Yeah.
Well, part of that history is Keeley, and color me as well as many people surprised that this did not sever anything between the two of you. In fact, you're the only person up until your boot who she told about the idol. There's this Mally thing that's apparently happening. So talk to me about this. How were you able to get her back on board so quickly after you masterminded her number 1 ally's boot?
Marley. Marley had existed for some time. Keeley and I are great friends in the game and now as well. I'm also great friends with Faith too. But we had this really funny relationship where we have a very dark sense of humor. We would stay up cackling into the night for hours talking about how we were 3 people on a tribe of 8 and no one was coming for us. It was really fun. And so we had this, and also like I kind of felt like Keeley was the sort of player, I wouldn't say it's not chaos, but she has this self-confidence that she's like, I want to play with Mark. Like she looks at the tribe and she's like, I want to play with Mark. And so I felt that, yes, it was bad for her to lose faith. But I also think in her mind, she's like, well, I've still got Mark. We're going into merge. We're so close. I like she probably looked at everyone else in the tribe and was like, you know what, I'm better off just sticking with Mark. And the way she handled the conversation after voting Faith off is probably devastating for Faith to watch. But we went back and you could see that like comedic element where we like poured one out for Faith and then cackled into the moonlight. So that was very representative of my relationship with Keeley. So yeah, a lot of fun playing with Keeley. She's a great player.
Of course, saddened to talk with you today, but for what it's worth, I could have talked to you yesterday, considering all the calamity that went down with episode 14. I need to get your perspective as to your entire methodology during that tribal. What had you deciding at the end of the day to put the votes on Rich instead of Ben, and how do you look back on that decision?
Mike, I don't regret it at all. I think it was actually a really good decision. Before I get into it, there's just one little thing I want to touch on, which is when I learned from Titans v Rebels is people come into the game listening to, you know, great podcasts that you do, and that dissect the game and talk about the strategy. And I think that people have in their mind a concept of like optimal gameplay. What I learned from Titans v Rebels and other seasons of Survivor is disruption has great value because it creates opportunities that you can then take advantage of. So, and if you don't create a little disruption, the game becomes too predictable. With that being said, what was not shown before that tribal council was me, Simon, Brooke, Keeley, and Richard staying up all night long discussing how we're going to manage this merged tribe. And Richard, and this is in the middle of the night, and Richard was really adamant in saying that he could bring Loz to the table, that he could work with Loz. That was his closest ally, and that's valuable. Like, that's really valuable number. Like, that's a big block of 6. And I have Caleb on the side, and I have a few others. So you have to understand that going into that tribal council, I only got the look from Brooke just before tribal, and so I went into that tribal being with my back up against the wall, thinking, what is going on? Who's coming at me? In that tribal council, I went to Rich multiple times, being like, "Hey, look, there's like 6 of us right here. Like, you know, the 6 that we've been discussing, you know, ad nauseum. Come on, like, where's the lack of conviction?" And in terms of coming with me, and us, Simon as well. I'm putting a bit of heat on, but that's how I was feeling. Simon as well was taking Rich aside, and he was calling in every single favor. And ultimately, I think Simon told Rich that the idol, the coral idol, was fake, not knowing that I had a real idol. And I think at that point, Rich sort of like turned his back on Simon. Simon came to me and he said, the ship has sailed. Like, we don't have the numbers. And at that point, I just got really angry. Like, I just got really angry. But I also thought, okay, I want allies that are like Keeley, Brooke, and Simon. I still think I can work with Ben, because Ben, there's this weird concept of big dogs in this season, and like, you know, like passengers and like kind of words that I'm not really comfortable with saying. But I felt like Ben was evolving into this lion. Like, he was like, I am a gangster. And I felt like I was hoping that in the future I could appeal to this in Ben, which is what I did, to say, hey, we can now be shields for each other. Let's like protect each other. Whereas someone like Rich was really well connected with Simon. He was really well connected with Loz. He was really well connected with Cameron, who gave him the moniker Cashflow.
Yeah.
And Keeley. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, granted, it's like a million things are running through my head, but I'm like, take out the middle player, get rid of Richard, remove power from Simon, remove power from Keeley. I can reveal to the tribe that Simon gave me this fake idol, and burn further trust that Simon had with the Beauty and the Beast alliance. It's a very individualistic move, but I was thinking, remove Rich from the equation, and then try and appeal to Ben as a big dog. Last thing I want to say, Mike, is when I went to play my actual idol, I made a speech and I said to Benjamin Nabia Davis, "You are a lion of this game. You're a great player. I will see you on the outside." Like mad respect, because I was nervous that they were going to play an idol for Ben. So I really wanted.
So you
to not
purposely
vote for
wanted
Ben
the
as
idol to
well.
get misdirected.
If there was an idol, if they had another idol,
Yeah.
I'm standing up there playing an idol, and I'm telling everyone, Ben, I love you. You're an icon, which he is. And in case someone pops up and says, "Hey, guess what? I'm playing an idol for Ben," and Brooke goes home or something like that, you know? So there, I think like all of that context really, for me, was like, okay, let's keep Ben in the game. Let's show him that I'm open to working with him, protect myself from any counter idol play. Drawing votes onto myself with a fake idol was very complicated, but I think it worked. There was a lot going through my head, and obviously, I want to win. I'm very competitive, Mike, as if you haven't noticed already. And so I was like, I was angry at Rich, and I think that seeped through some of my final words, which is not nice for Rich to hear on his way out. So I did feel for him watching that back. Yeah.
Well, so at the point that you had gone, let's say that you had stayed, that this plan where Caleb stayed with you and you get Ben out, did you have an ideal group you wanted to go to the end with? Or was it more so like, listen, I'm just going to jump on with whomever because I'm just going to keep being a target until I stop being a target?
Yeah, I mean, like part of my strategy was Brooke. So Brooke was my number one ally. And I thought that Brooke would always be nervous about being perceived as the challenge beast because she is a great challenge beast. Like she's so good. I love Brooke so much. So I always felt like, okay, and Brooke and I had actually discussed voting off Simon, and I felt that Keeley and Simon were close. I felt I was close with Brooke. In my mind, Simon was starting to rub couple of and it comes through like spending a lot of time on the beach with these players and then like stabbing them back like a few times. Like Simon had kind of done quite a few of his allies a little dirty, and so pains me to say it, obviously I'm out here talking to you, but if we had got through that vote, I probably would have asked Caleb what he wanted to do. And I was trying to create a little trio with me, Caleb, and Cameron because they were quite close. And I think Cameron was getting a bit fed up with Simon. And so I probably would have tried to angle to take out a returnee, like to continue that line that I was saying, that I think we need to give some people some meat to feast on. And that was a big juicy piece of Simon.
You were prominently in the spotlight, to say the least, through these 15 episodes, which made, again, you bit all the more shocking, but it obviously elicited a number of comments from even the people you were closest with. You were referred to as a dictator. The monarch, I think Johnson referred to you as, that you were a control freak, a jealous boyfriend. What is your reaction to that perception? Like, were you aware that was the way you were viewed out there, and did that affect any of the way you walked through the game?
I also got a standing ovation on the way out, Mike.
True, yeah.
So look, I think like some of those comments, like we're making TV, and I think that people are, I don't take it personally. I honestly don't take it personally at all. I do think that when we flipped the table on the cat vote, I realized part of that strategy was, okay, I've only got one vote. And I'm one, like Brooke is an angel on our tribe, and I am the schemy Mr. McSchemy. And so I'm in danger. I need power that is beyond my one vote. Wasn't expecting to be Timu, Boss, and Rob, but that's what I decided to become, or try and become. And so this concept of using fear and intimidation was not my intention going out there to Samoa, Australian Survivor Redemption. It was not I did not have this in my notebook. But it just came to me. And so obviously, as the game progresses, and I understand it. Like I would be annoyed if people were confronting me and being controlling, but I wanted to have this sense that if you were talking behind my back, that I would find out about it and there would be hell to pay. And that's not pleasant. Like that's not pleasant for anyone. So I get it. And then I think as well at that was it Bounty Swap Tribe. The head office we went in, I think, 3 out of 8. Obviously, Don was there, and there's other players there. But the way in which we were able to run that tribe was so ridiculous, but also fun. And it wouldn't have been fun to be on the receiving end of that. Like I get it. Like I worked really closely with Rich and Lyndall. I was actually in two minds about sending Lyndall home. It's one that's like a bit of a question mark for me. But the way which we quickly infiltrated that tribe so intensely and made it really difficult for anyone to make a move is stifling. It's not fun for the other people. It was a load of fun for me, Faith, and Keeley. So I get it. Like I get it. And I think I have to kind of own that as well. And I'm quite happy in owning that. I know what I'm like on the outside. All my friends know what I'm like. But I'm playing a reality TV game. I promised myself that I was just going to do whatever I felt right. Do whatever that I thought would make sense and felt right. And that included intimidation, fear, and loathing. So, on the behalf of others. So you know, like I kind of got to own it.
Yeah.
But hey, head office had a great time doing it, so that was good.
I think that's a wonderful and grounded perspective as well. I think both acknowledging the role that you played in the season, as well as, you know, the way you made people, it doesn't necessarily excuse, you know, the way people felt, but I think being able to also explain, you know, clearly I think you did have a good time out there. And I know that you came back in willing to play a little bit more nefarious. I have so many more questions. I'm not to be presumptuous. I think you and I are going to have a longer conversation when this whole shebang is said and done if you're up for it. But the last thing I want to ask is your transition from one role to another here, because last time you were the final juror. You barely had time to, you know, get a shower before you came back and cast a vote. Now it's quite a different experience. Without getting into too much, what was your mindset as this first juror, as the diplomatic mayor of Ponderosa, compared to your first season?
Oh my goodness, it's such a good question, Mike. Like, it's a completely different experience. Last time on Titans v Rebels, I honestly had a shower, had a shave, got dressed, and went to Final Tribal, and I was like, what is going on? This time I had so long to consider it all. I wanted to create a I wanted to create a welcoming environment. I wanted people to also have space for themselves, like just to be by themselves. I didn't want, because I knew I played quite a controlling and like I had a big influence on the game. And so without spoiling the order that people came in, I wanted to let people just simmer in their thoughts a little bit, because it's a long time. And then just gently over time, remind people that this is a game and that your and this is Mark's take on the world. Right. Your metric for what matters is important to you, and no one can take that away from you. So that is fundamental to how I make my decisions in the game. Like, I know what's important in Survivor to me, but that can be different for other people. And so I think that giving people the time to process anger, hurt, betrayal, all of those feelings, because it's real, and at the same time coming to a conclusion in their mind to be like, what does Survivor mean to me, and how do I want to portray that in my final vote, was probably the primary thought that I had. So, and in my final words, I said to the tribe, which is very nice that they included it, to say like, play your best game because only you can play your game. And so it's a very Survivor is an individual game. There's one winner, and that's how I play the game. And so I just wanted people to think about what mattered to them and not worry about how things would be perceived by other people. Because I think that is difficult when you get into that territory, being like, you know, what should I be seen to be doing? I'm like, nah, screw that. Screw the haters. Just do what's right for you.
Yeah, I think that is beautifully said. Mark, I love how much you love this game. And I feel like it just, you know, it evokes every sense of livelihood I feel in you. And obviously this second season, very different from your first in multiple ways, but that is really the large sense I got. As you mentioned, other people may not have been having fun in particular, but I could tell you were lapping up every, you know, delicious, malicious confessional that you had every time you got the chance to enact a blindside, or every time you reacted to a blindside happening to you. It's clear that your passion for this, and yes, your competitive drive, but I think I imagine the spirit that you exited the game with was sort of representative of that, right? Like the fact that you had just been undercut by this guy that you made a bond with on day 2 and completely underestimated. And you turn around and everyone is standing up and applauding you when you became the first juror. I know that obviously $500,000 is like the prize at the end of the day, but I am glad that you walked out with your head held high because you made such an impact on this season. You made this such an immensely enjoyable season with all of the delightful malarkey that was happening. I cannot wait to get into more of that detailed malarkey after this season. But I'm just so grateful that you not only had the time to speak with me about so much today, but you got to speak so much about it on the season proper. It was truly such a pleasure.
Oh, thanks, Mike. And I mean, like, it's how lucky am I to have my game shown like in such great detail. And I think what I like, there is a deeper point to this, which is when I left Titans v Rebels, you know, I played that game as a former diplomat, you know, and then I got out there and I was like, you know, it's not often in life you get a chance just to go into the sandpit and just make some mess. And like, you know, like people like Annabelle, people like Karen, these good friends that I've made on the outside, but after Titans v Rebels, and they're like, Mark, you're crazy. You are like actually outrageous. And and like people like Karen would say, you know, I'm so surprised that you are like this when I watched you in sort of professional mode on Titans v Rebels. Now, I like that game that I played. I'm really proud of it. I almost won. But what I kind of took away personally was like, you know what? Let's go out there and play this game like I'm chatting to Annabelle or like I'm chatting to Karen. That gets you in trouble sometimes, but you know what? YOLO, let's just do it. And so I think that's the energy that you're picking up on, which I am proud of. So yeah, it's been
and
nice to have
sometimes you only live twice when you get the chance to come back and make it all happen again. So regardless, I am so thrilled that I got the chance to chat with you. I look forward to seeing, you know, everything that you bring as a juror, including that final tribal council. And seriously, Mark, thank you. So great getting to chat with you as always. And thank you for offering your wonderful insights into everything. Yes. One more thing.
Thanks, Mike. Jury's Out is now on Channel 10. It's a really fun addition to the show. So if you haven't watched it already, go and watch it. It's really fun.
You are a company man through and through. You're plugging the bonus content. I love it. Well, the jury's not out on you anytime soon, my friend. I cannot wait to talk with you once everything is wrapped. But for now, all the best to you and yours, Mark. Thank you so much again, man. This is a great chat.
Thanks, Mike.
Of course.
Take
Have a
it
good
easy.
one.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.